Masterpiece Cakeshop owner Jack Phillips was in trouble again, got in trouble again because the left insisted that he bake yet another cake, and now he's going back to court. It's like that he lives in the courtroom at this point. He should probably just take his bakery there. Jack Phillips and his attorney Jake Warner join us now to discuss this never-ending persecution from the left. Jack and Jake, so good to see you. And Jack, I have to say, I think you're a modern-day American folk hero, and I'm very glad that you're standing up not just for your right to freely practice your faith, but also control your labor and for your free speech as well. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so I was reading in March of just a few months ago, March of this year, Jack, you're going back to court again. How many times is this for you now?
I'm not sure how many times it is, but this is our third lawsuit. Even though I serve everybody who comes into my door or calls me on the phone, but I can't create every message that people ask me to create.
Right, and that's really that's really the point of all of this here. And I've read some other interviews with you, and I know that you're very consistent in terms of what you will use your free expression and labor for. I know that you sell pre-made cakes or birthday cakes, etc. to everyone. But when someone is asking you to use your time and your creativity and your expression to create a cake that is counter to either to your beliefs, that's where you draw the line. That could even, you could interpret that for cakes to celebrate divorce, couldn't you?
Yeah, there are a number of cakes that we don't create. We knew right from the beginning, before we opened the shop, that we wouldn't create cakes that celebrated Halloween, or cakes that were anti-American or racist, or cakes that would denigrate or insult anybody, including people who identify as LGBT. It's always the message of the cake that we determine, never the person who's ordering the cake.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a very good point. And I've told people on my radio program before, I am an imperfect Christian, and I've talked about this often, but I like Halloween, but you would actually turn me away if I went to your bakery and tried to order a Halloween cake.
Yeah, it's always the cake that's in question, never the person asking for it. And there are many other cakes, including in our latest lawsuit, the person who's suing me asked me to create at one time a cake with Satan smoking a marijuana joint. And that's not a cake that I would create for you or my mom or for Jake here. It's just not a cake that I would create. So it's the message of the cake.
Yeah, and Jake, I want to bring you in about on this as well, because this is as much a free speech issue as it is your right to be able to freely practice your faith and live out your faith wherever you go and not just hang it up in the closet and only take it out on Sundays. Talk to us a little bit about the significance of free speech in this case, because ultimately that's what's being argued.
That's exactly right. Issue in this case and many other cases that we litigate here at ADF is one question. Does the government have the power to force creative professionals to express messages that go against their deepest beliefs? And we believe the First Amendment says the answer is no, the government doesn't have that power. And that's especially true in Jack's most recent case. You might remember that on the same day the U.S. Supreme Court decided to hear Jack's first case, a Denver attorney called Jack up and asked for a custom pink and blue cake to celebrate a gender transition. But this wasn't the first time that attorney called Jack. Back in 2012, this attorney emailed Jack, calling him a bigot and a hypocrite, and then tracked Jack's case for years, ultimately leading to that phone call. And what we're seeing now is government officials and activists really weaponizing the legal system to punish people that they disagree with, and the Constitution forbids that.
And that's a very, very good point, because this is weaponizing the legal system and ultimately going for a false sense of justice. Jake, I'm going to ask you this. The inability to say no, I do not define that as freedom.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the principle that we're advocating for here doesn't just protect Jack Phillips, it protects any creative professionals. For example, the government shouldn't have the power to force a website designer who identifies as LGBT to promote a website promoting traditional marriage if that goes against their beliefs. The government shouldn't have the power to force anyone to express messages that violate their core convictions. So yes, this is very much a freedom of speech issue.
I noticed your book behind you, The Cost of My Faith, and you get into that in with your book exactly what you and your family have had to go through. Tell me a little about what this experience, because this has been since 2012 now, if memory serves. What has this years-long experience, what has this been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a little over 9 years now, and it's been up and down throughout different times. The court took away our very lucrative wedding business because they said that if you're going to create wedding cakes, you have to create them for all weddings, including weddings that go against your faith. So we lost that wedding business, but at the same time, we've met a great deal of people who support us, including when we were at our trial back in March. A former gay activist testified on our behalf that I create cakes for everybody, but I can't create every cake that everybody asks for. And that was really encouraging to hear that testimony in the court under oath.
Yeah, I was reading about that. It was a gentleman named Mike Jones, and he appeared at your trial, and he had been a customer of yours, and he had shared in a deposition that he's placed numerous orders with you, including birthday cakes, etc. What really gets me, and I'm going to go back to Jake here for a moment, and because this has already gone up to the Supreme Court, and I've had a lot of people when I first shared the headline of Jack going back to court again in March. Everyone's like, "Well, how is this possible? How is this happening again?" The Supreme Court weighed in. Explain that to folks really quickly, Jake, if you would.
Well, in Jack's first case, the U.S. Supreme Court didn't even need to reach the free speech issue, and that's because the free exercise violation was so clear. The Supreme Court ruled that Colorado officials had acted with impermissible hostility against Jack and his faith. And the court cited two reasons for that. One, Colorado officials compared Jack's plea for religious freedom to some of the worst things in our history, such as defenses justifying slavery and the Holocaust. But the second reason, the Supreme Court said, was Colorado officials treated Jack worse than every other cake artist in the state. State officials had already allowed other cake artists to decline to create cakes that express messages going against their deepest beliefs, but they declined that same freedom to Jack, and that kind of discrimination is wrong. So that's what happened. That's what happened in Jack's first case. The Supreme Court left open the free speech issue, which is why we're litigating in part this most recent case, but we're confident that the court's going to uphold Jack's right to live and work according to his deeply held beliefs without fear of government punishment at the end of this.
My goodness. I mean, it is, I can't even imagine what you all have been through. And it's sad, too, that you also had to stop doing wedding cakes as well. I joked about this a little bit on air when I was discussing your case. I was saying, well, what does Jack Phillips do to his cakes that make them so delicious that everybody is demanding that he give them a cake no matter what? And I mean, really, when they ignore every other baker in the area. So, like, apparently your cakes are incredibly special. So, I mean, tell us about it. I have to know what makes it so special that people are demanding this, you know, and even going to this length to get it from you.
You know, I'm not sure what people see in, you know, making them special and that they want to come and get them, but they have for almost 28 years now, and we're proud of that. We enjoy meeting with the people and working with them to try and design cakes that go with their celebrations, you know, the way that they want them to. The person who's suing me doesn't see it that way. In the mediation, this person also told me that the only thing that would be satisfactory to resolve this is for me personally, to create the cake for him. So it wouldn't matter if every other bakery in the world made this cake for this person. I'm the one who has to do it, but I can't create a cake like that goes against my deeply held religious beliefs like that.
Yeah. How long will you fight, Jack?
Well, the next step is the Colorado Court of Appeals, and we'll see where we go after that. Hopefully the Court of Appeals will reverse the decision that the lower court made.
Yeah. And we'll be watching that case as well, because and as you were saying too, Jake, I've seen so many of these cases, whether it's a t-shirt printer or bed and breakfast owners. I mean, people should be able to have the right to determine their own expression and labor, and here it is, 2021, and I mean, these are very different. I mean, it's a very consistent issue. It's very easy to, you know, hold the line on this, and it's very easy to understand. People should be able to exercise these rights.